Today, we are dismantling a massive myth that traps creators and professionals in endless cycles of delay. We're going to dive deep into the psychology of why we actually get stuck, and more importantly, how creators can finally stop those agonizing revision loops and just hit publish. All right, let's jump right into this.
I'm not procrastinating. I just want it to be right before I start. Come on, I'm willing to bet almost everyone watching this right now has said some version of this to themselves. I know I have. It's honestly one of the most convincing lies we tell ourselves because, well, it sounds like a productive excuse, doesn't it? It sounds like you're just being a dedicated professional. But the research points to a much more uncomfortable reality. This phrase is usually a mask for something else entirely.
So here is the hard truth that kind of flips everything we think we know right on its head. Research on perfectionism has found something that the label itself tends to hide. In a massive number of cases, perfectionism doesn't just compete with procrastination, it is actually the direct cause of it. Think about that for a second. You aren't delaying because you're lazy, you're delaying because you are a perfectionist.
Surface-level observations completely miss the real problem here, which is exactly why standard productivity advice, the whole just work harder thing, usually fails miserably for perfectionists. Just look at this stark contrast. On one side, you've got the obsessive creator putting in this monumental effort. Maybe they're agonizing over a color grade for literally 12 hours straight. But then on the other side, you have the creators staring blankly at a screen, avoiding the work entirely. They look like absolute opposites, right? One looks like you care way too much, and the other looks like you don't care at all. But clinical and social psychology research reveals they are actually driven by the exact same mechanism, the fear of an imperfect outcome. Not starting is simply a highly effective way to avoid producing something less than perfect.
Let's dive into the actual psychological mechanism behind why creators suddenly freeze up. Whether they're staring at a blank canvas or hovering over the submit button, it's the same feeling. For someone with high perfectionistic tendencies, the unstarted task is a very, very safe space. It represents unlimited potential. In your head, that unwritten script or unrecorded intro is absolutely flawless. But the exact moment you actually start the task, you create an imperfect reality. Starting immediately and concretely closes off that fantasy of perfection.
So let's break down what this actually means for your daily workflow. First, starting destroys the fantasy of a flawless outcome. Because of that, procrastination isn't laziness at all. It acts as a protective response. Your brain is literally protecting you from the emotional discomfort of seeing your own imperfect work. The root driver here is the fear of imperfection, not a lack of discipline. So if you've been beating yourself up for a lack of willpower, you can stop right now, because you've been fighting the wrong battle entirely.
But what happens when you finally do start? Well, the fear just mutates. This is where creators really get trapped. Endless revision is simply a way of never having to call a project done and actually face judgment. If you are on your 15th pass of an edit, making these microscopic changes to the audio levels that nobody will ever actually notice, you aren't improving the work anymore. You are postponing reality. Declaring something finished means submitting it to the world. It means getting a client's feedback, a public reaction from your audience, or even just your own retrospective evaluation. Continuing to revise protects you from the moment the audience actually sees it. Just like not starting, postpone the risk of a bad beginning.
Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking right now, so let's address the elephant in the room with a quick midpoint pivot. You might be asking, wait a minute, isn't having high standards a good thing? And yes, absolutely it is. Caring about quality and doing careful, thorough work is genuinely valuable. We are absolutely not arguing for you to go out there and put out terrible work.
The distinction that matters is your orientation. Healthy striving is when your standard is oriented toward genuine improvement to the work itself. Fear-driven perfectionism, on the other hand, is when your standard is oriented toward avoiding the anxiety of judgment. It's a huge difference. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Healthy striving produces excellent, completed work. Fear-driven perfectionism produces excellent, permanently unfinished work.
Okay, now that we know exactly what's happening under the hood, let's talk about the solution. Here is a highly effective, research-backed, 3-part framework to stop those agonizing revision loops and finally hit publish. Step 1. Deliberately produce an explicitly imperfect first draft. Make a version you know is bad on purpose. This instantly removes the psychological stakes of that first attempt. Step 2, and listen, this is your absolute silver bullet for breaking the revision loop, set a defined stopping point in advance. Decide right now, I will do exactly 2 editing passes, or I will stop tweaking this thumbnail at 3 p.m. no matter what. Without an artificial, concrete limit, the loop will literally never end.
And step 3, explicitly separate the drafting mindset from the editing mindset. Trying to write and edit a script at the exact same time triggers that fear-driven freeze. Separate them, and you remove the pressure entirely.
If you remember only one single thing from this, please let it be this. The first version's job is simply to exist, not to be good. None of the steps we just talked about require you to lower your actual final standards. It just requires you to separate the moment of creation from the moment of judgment. You can judge it later. Right now, it just needs to exist in the real world.
I want to leave you with a massive cognitive reframe that you can apply to your workflow the minute this explainer is over. Delayed starting and endless revising are never simple laziness. If you've been stuck, you aren't lazy. Both of these behaviors are driven by the exact same fear of imperfection, just wearing two different disguises depending on what stage of the project you're currently in. The ultimate goal was never to eliminate your desire to do quality work. The goal is separating that desire for quality from the fear of judgment that makes starting and finishing feel so impossibly hard. Just realizing that you are merely afraid takes so much pressure off.
So I want to leave you with this question to reflect on as we wrap up today. What is something you've been avoiding starting or avoiding finishing and publishing simply because it might not turn out perfect? I want you to identify that project today. Give yourself full permission to make a gloriously imperfect first draft, set a strict limit on your revision passes, and finally break the loop. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.